So, hi there and welcome back. So, today I have a very special guest, an old friend and colleague who is on the pod today. His name is Mark Feuerstein. He is a successful actor, writer, producer, and director, and he has worked consistently in Hollywood since the late 1990s. Mark is known for his starring role in the USA series Royal Pains, which is where I know him from. And other television credits include The West Wing, Sex and the City, Prison Break, and The Babysitter's Club. Some of his feature credits include What Women Want, In Her Shoes, and Practical Magic. Mark grew up in New York City, graduated from Princeton University, and won a Fulbright scholarship, which took him to the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts. He then pursued his full-time acting career. In addition to which, he has Hotel Cocaine coming out on MGM Plus on June 16th. He can be seen in the upcoming limited series, Lady in the Lake with Natalie Portman. He lives in Los Angeles with his beautiful wife and 3 children. And today, thank you, Mark, for joining me.
Woo! You nailed that intro. Thank you very much for that. I am so over the moon to be here. I have to tell you, I love your new life as a life coach and guru and sage, and you'll tell me more about how to define what you are. Or let's not define it.
I was going to say, I think that's already too many adjectives. I would start with life coach, but guru is definitely a bridge too far, and sage is just a beautiful compliment. So I'll take that one.
Great, because I love all things introspective, transcendental, that give us perspective and presence. And I'm a meditator, and I just have been so excited to get on here with you, because I know it's not going to be your typical podcast where we just get to the stories of our business and our life in the business, but it will go deeper. And somehow, I don't know how, I'm just excited to talk to you in that context.
So that is a great segue, because I wanted to actually start this interview and catch up with you, because it has been so many years since I've gotten to see your beautiful face and hear your voice. But I have to tell you that it was you when I first moved to Maui and was telecommuting as a television executive in 2009. And you sent me a book. Did you know that?
I vaguely remember that, so vaguely.
Yeah, we went to lunch. We were having sushi in Studio City, and your 3rd child had just been born, and you were going through a whole host of things. But your 3rd child was born. That 3rd child is now 13 years old?
She's 14.
14. So, wow, 14 years. And literally, I remember that sushi lunch like yesterday, because we were just doing all the things you just talked about, which was we were talking about spirituality and connection and the human dynamics and life and death and medical conditions, which of course is, we'll get to that too, because that's Royal Pains. And the book that you sent me when I moved to Maui was Wherever You Go, There You Are by Jon Kabat-Zinn, who was kind of like my first introduction to even the world of meditation. I didn't start meditating until 8 or 9 years ago, so it took me a while.
Yeah.
And I only came to it dragging and screaming, because I was like, I can't. But I remember you were an early adopter of meditation, and I was so inspired that no matter how hard your schedule was, because you had an insane schedule, being the lead of a very, very successful television series in Royal Pains, you would get up no matter what time your call time was, and you would meditate. And I was like, wait, what? If your call time's like 7 a.m. and you've got to like commute and whatever, and you're like, yeah, I get up and I meditate. And I just loved that. I love that commitment to yourself.
Yeah.
So
and it's
about it.
That book is so special. And Jon Kabat-Zinn was really my gateway drug to mindfulness and meditation.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I study with his son, Will Kabat-Zinn, who is amazing and beginning a 4-week workshop that I'm going to forward you an email about. Starts Thursday, just 2 hours a week. You might enjoy it. I'll send it to you. But I've done probably 5 workshops with him. We most recently did the 4 Noble Truths of Buddhism, and he kind of walked us through each. in an experiential kind of way. You know, when I was dating my wife, Dana, I ran into an actor I had been doing Good Morning Miami with, Jerry Burns, who's
Uh-huh.
a very talented actor,
Uh-huh.
lovely guy. And
Yes.
he turned me on to The Power of Now. And
Yes.
that was what put my head in the tiger's mouth, so to speak, with regard to what is this brain, this programming, this spiraling mind that just keeps going all the time and is running me all the
Yeah.
time? And
Yeah.
how do
Yeah.
I get any distance from it? I mean, as you know, Jackie, from our biz, like A, our business makes us crazy. B, actors are even crazier than our business makes us.
Yeah.
And there's so many things about it that keep you from remembering that you are enough.
Yeah.
And so meditation just brings me back when, you know, rather than solving all the issues of my life that involve external validation and whatnot that I'm hunting for constantly, with one breath, with 3 breaths, with 5 to 20 minutes of breathing, if I can even do it 30-20% of the time, can bring you back to yourself. And John Kabat-Zinn has a book, Coming to Your Senses. He has a book, Full Catastrophe Living. And that guy really, when I finally got to Wherever You Go, There You Are, it was so simple. Like I would just sit in my comfy chair with a blanket and read a passage from Wherever You Go, There You Are. And they're the perfect size because they're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
page and a half.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you just dive in. And I don't know, something about it always felt so exotic. And there are times where I remember that I'm just sitting in a chair and like time is passing. It could be so boring. And sometimes it is, but like you remember how special life is. You remember that it's a miracle I can see and hear and breathe and touch and taste and all of it. So I'm very grateful for meditation and the journey I've been on with it for so long. And I love that I helped you
You
get to
did.
it.
You did. I read the book. I loved it. Obviously, wherever you go, there you are is an incredible phrase. And I think it was in Buckaroo Banzai. Do you remember the quote?
I don't.
I think it is, no matter where you go, there you are. And I don't know if he was parroting that because that became like a catchphrase in the 80s.
Oh, I didn't remember that.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
It was one of like my favorite Peter Weller movies, or if it predated that. I don't know which. But when I moved to Maui the first time, I moved twice, but in 2009, everybody was like, oh my God, all your problems are solved because you moved to paradise. And I used to say, I moved to paradise, but I came with me. And it was a variation of no matter where you go, there you are.
Yes.
Because the thing is, it's great, as you know, to go on vacation. It is great to go to beautiful places. It's great to travel. It's great to give yourself a break. But if you don't work out your stuff, it follows you.
Yeah.
Or you follow you.
I have to share with you, you're eliciting instantly my favorite quotes about that experience. The act of becoming an actor is instantly taking your life off the rails of that academic schedule that you had been on for whatever, 18 years. And suddenly you're free at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And Shakespeare has this quote, just to go real pretentious for a second. Prince Hal says, if all the year were playing holiday, then to sport would be as tedious as to work. But when they seldom come, they wished for come, and nothing pleaseth but rare accidents. Which is to say, like, if every day were a holiday, if you move to Hawaii and every day the sun is shining and every day you're surfing, then suddenly no day is a holiday and you need to do the work to find your purpose.
Yeah.
And that's how it feels as an actor sometimes when you're, you know, I mean, Robin Williams has another way of saying it, which is when I'm working, that's the vacation. When I'm not working, that's the job.
Yes.
And I feel that way about my life as an actor. And there's a lot of downtime. Here we are chatting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm so grateful that I can be here and that I am free, but you also cherish the time when you're on a set and working.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that way. And I've talked about this a lot in various forms, newsletters and podcasts. I feel that way now as a coach. when I'm working, it's like a vacation. I didn't feel that way in my television career, but not because I didn't love television. I actually loved and love television. I love it as a medium. I love it as a spectator. I love it as being part of it and contributing to the degree that I did. I just was on an end of it that was just so insanely political and exhausting. That's what was exhausting about it, not the act of like helping shepherd television shows to the air and watching people grow into like amazing TV stars and movie stars that they did.
But Jackie, I just want to take a moment for all your listeners so they know what a badass television executive you were, because you not only put the Blue Skies mission of, shows like Royal Pains and White Collar and Burn Notice, and, I'm not going to be perfect about which ones you were more intimately involved in, Suits, all the Blue Sky shows that were ushered in that era, but you were also a genius about reality TV with, is it Chris Lee Knows Best?
Yeah.
I remember you were watching all the tapes of Chris Lee and his family while we were visiting you in Hawaii. And you were like, this guy is something. He is just something America has never seen before. And then, of course, you were right. It took off. And so, even though you have put that life in the rear view, it's just another example of your natural talent.
Well, I thank you. I take the compliment, but I'll tell you, the parts of it that I loved the most are the parts of it I now get to do as a coach, which is great. Like this, like sitting and talking to people about what matters to them, what's important, and getting rid of like the demons, getting rid of the doubt and the spiraling of, I didn't get the job, or I did get the job, or I want to feel happier in my family, or whatever it is. Getting people to meditate, getting people to like look inwards so that they can have more success outward. Like that part, I did that as a TV executive too, but now I get to do it like all day, every day. So I love it.
It's amazing. I actually was this Saturday, I was at a friend's graduation party. She had been a comedy writer and she became a therapist. She did a 2-year master's program and was away from her 2 beautiful daughters and husband a lot just to get that degree. And all her classmates were there and all our friends in our community were there. Yeah. It was a very unconventional, like you don't have that kind of party every day where it's your 53-year-old friend's graduation from her master's program. And now she's going to be a therapist, but she's incredible. She's meant to do this. Yeah. She found her calling at this stage of life. And it's so special and powerful and beautiful.
One of the things that I talk about quite a bit is that like, you're never too old, right? You can go back to school, or you can reinvent your career, or you can, if you need be, remarry or fall in love or find love or change your scenery. Like you're not too late. I mean, I started coaching when I was 55 years old, and it was the career I was meant to do.
Yeah, it's amazing. I have a not totally appropriate King Lear quote now. This is for people who are having a tough time, but it also applies to everything we're talking about. 'Tis not the worst so long as you can say 'tis the worst.
Ooh, explain that to me. Okay, so
if you're alive and you can say this is the worst, this is the fucking worst, it's not the worst. Because you're alive and you can say it. It's Shakespeare just reminding you, as long as she comes, stays, laser praise, your toes are still tapping. Thank you, everybody. Classing it up, Mark Feuerstein.
Too funny. Too funny.
It's a Mike Damone from Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
You've just gone from 2 Shakespeare quotes, both of which had needed to be explained to me. And then you've referenced Fast Times at Ridgemont High in the same sentence. So now Royal Pains, the show that we met on, although actually I knew of you before Royal Pains, obviously, which is that I did a show at ABC called Once and Again.
Oh my God.
And you came as a guest star playing the boyfriend of the sister, I believe.
It was the boyfriend of Susanna Thompson. The show centered Billy Campbell and Celia Ward. They were each divorced, and they were trying to figure out their new relationship in the wake of their respective divorces. And Susanna Thompson played Billy Campbell's ex-wife. And I was Leo the bike guy. I
Messenger.
the mess. I mean, I was I a messenger?
Yeah, I think you
I might
brought
have been
in
a
either
bike
like
messenger.
I think you brought in either lunch or you brought in paperwork. I can't remember, but there was some kind
Something,
of like
something.
messenger thing.
Yes, yeah. I was definitely on a bike, and I just finished listening. It's crazy that you're mentioning Once and Again. That's where the spiritual part comes in here somehow. Because I literally yesterday finished listening to Ed Zwick's entire autobiography of his entire career
Oh.
called Hits, Flops, and Other Illusions. And I highly recommend it
Oh, I'll
because
definitely listen to it.
he is so brilliant and so articulate and has had such an amazing career. And I was like part of it in three ways. Once and Again, I was in his movie Defiance
Right.
and the movie Abandon, which Steve Gaghan wrote and directed, which I didn't realize was a disaster for him until he mentioned it as a postscript at the end. But it's an incredible book. And yes, Once and Again was such a great experience. And I got to meet Evan Rachel Wood, who was like such an artist, and like
Yeah.
it was incredible.
So you popped onto the screen, which popped onto my dailies in my office. And I was like, oh, who is this guy? This guy has such electricity and charisma, and he's so handsome. And I like ran down the hall to our head of casting and I was like, do you know who this guy is? And she said, yeah, 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 yeah. And I'm like, we have to use him in something. And then you ended up like in a New York Minute getting Good Morning Miami.
Yep, that's right.
And then you were gone, on that. And then I left ABC, went to USA, and we were just at the very, very, very beginning of creating new shows and whatever. And so we did Monk, obviously, in the Dead Zone, and then Psych, and eventually Royal Pains. And I'm like, we got Mark Feuerstein back. I was
That's
like,
amazing. That's amazing how life
but it
works.
was, I probably never told you that story because we wouldn't have interacted. I wasn't on the set of Once and Again. I was seeing the dailies in my office, but I remembered from the moment I saw your first frame, I was like, oh my God, is he something?
Thank you so much. Thank you for saying that. I'm so touched that you remember that. And I'm just blown away by the way life works, that you could have had that moment in your office about me, that I would go on to do a show that doesn't go for that long, and then other things. And then suddenly we come back to do the greatest show of my career, Royal Pains. And then we get to be here today. Like,
I
that's
know
just,
it is
that's what I
incredible.
love about life, is like, if you stick around long enough, if you just stick it out, everything pays off, comes back. You get to see like the fruits of your labor,
Yeah.
just in this moment with you.
And it's little seeds. And like, by the way, that's just one of the many, many themes that I want to talk about, which is like, we can take massive action, as we say. We can work really hard and get straight A's. And like you did, go to an Ivy League and pursue a career. But some of it is passion. Some of it is hard work. Some of it is luck.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is belief
Mm-hmm.
in ourselves, just pure perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no chocolate chip cookie, Toll House recipe, perfect recipe. I mean, we do our best, but when you show up and you do what you did, which was you were an academic and you were a great student and a great actor and a handsome, charming guy, you were all the things, but then you also worked incredibly hard at your craft. You weren't just like, yeah, I went to an Ivy League school. Yeah, I got my degree in, dramatic art. And phoning it in. You're like, oh no, I'm willing to take the bike messenger in this series on ABC and see where it goes. And yes, I'll do sitcoms, and yes, I'll do drama, and yes, I'll do features, and yes, I'll play an ancillary character, and yes, I'll be the leading man.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
all hard work and belief and commitment.
100%. And it's a hustle. I mean, it's so hard, this business. It's riding high in April, shot down in May, and you're waiting to see what June will bring constantly.
Yeah.
And my work, just to go there for a second, is finding the line between pushing, both in my acting and in my daily life, and allowing. Because yes, I did all the things. Thank you for saying that. The hard work of building a good resume to get into college, and then totally throwing that resume out to follow my bliss, as Joseph Campbell said. And audition for a play and then doing, 15 plays at Princeton and then getting a scholarship, which I took because I didn't get into any of the drama schools, NYU, Yale, ART at Harvard, rejected by all of them, but got this free year at Lambda in London, courtesy of Senator Fulbright's scholarship. Okay. Went there, studied clowning. I mean, out of nowhere. My best friend was from the Conservatoire in Paris, and he said, Mark, I know you're feeling very good about yourself. Maybe you try to study clowning with this guy, which I did, which put me right back in my place if I had gotten a little cocky in drama school.
Love it.
Then you're suddenly, again, free at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, waiting for a voiceover audition at some casting office when I'm 23 years old, biking around New York City, preparing for my role as a bike messenger on Once and Again.
I love it. I love it. But you just never know. And I think that being willing to go on the journey and willing to do what you have to do to make ends meet in between while you're on the journey.
Yeah.
Royal Pains is having a little bit of a resurgence.
Yeah, it's been crazy. It's been on Netflix. They bought a new cycle of it, which we're very happy that they did.
Yeah.
And I am feeling it. I mean, it's crazy how many emails and calls and in the airport, like it's almost bigger now than it was when we were on cable. I mean,
Well,
it's
that was true for Suits too.
Well, Suits had a crazy explosion. We've had a nice explosion. I wouldn't say it's Suits level, but I mean, those guys are, I'm watching the NBA playoffs. They're doing the T-Mobile commercials. I'm waiting for Paulo and I to get that call. But still, by the way, we're available, T-Mobile. We're available. But we did great. And there's talk of a possible follow-up movie. We'll see. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
But like, I'm just so grateful that I got to have a second life. And like my son, who has never seen anything I've done. He's now 16, except for a movie I made. I don't know what prompted him to watch it. It was the only thing he'd ever seen. It was Larry Gay, Renegade Male Flight Attendant, a comedy in the vein of Airplane and Anchorman. We made it for very low budget and it looks it, but the director did an amazing job. It actually looks great. But anyway, Frisco turns to me and he goes, Dad, not your best work. Okay, thanks, Frisco.
Oh, but I love the honesty.
The honesty, yeah.
I love it.
Kids don't care. But then suddenly, after that moment, which of course I was thrilled about, he's watching the entire series of Royal Pains. And I have to examine myself because it was one of the first times I sat and watched TV with him because he watches a bunch of Drek. And I'm like, Mark, is the story really that the time you finally took to really watch TV with your son was when you were finally on the screen? No, that can't be. It's close. There's something to it. No, I've watched a lot with him, but it was very fun to see him watching Royal Pains.
And what did he think of your work on 8 seasons?
7 seasons? Yeah.
8 seasons.
He said, Dad, you're a pretty good actor.
You're like, that's how we have the house we live in.
Right. By the way, I call it the house that Roush and Chewy built because of our executive producers on Royal Pains.
There you go. So tell me a little bit about the new series on MGM Plus.
Yeah. Just to go back to the moments when you get apart, which are each their own experience. I want to share the Royal Pains moment very briefly and then lead into the Hotel Cocaine. They're both great moments, but in the case of Royal Pains, it was a journey. I tested against a bunch of actors and Bonnie Hammer said no initially. And my manager, Stephen Levy, at the time, put her face on his screensaver and would not relent until she saw more materials. He sent her more materials from my movies and other TV shows. And she gave me a second chance, which is what the show is all about. The theme of Royal Pains is second chances. I was blackballed by every hospital in New York. I get a second chance in the Hamptons. Mark Feuerstein, Bonnie Hammer gave me a second chance. I remember I was in Plumber Park in Hollywood with I guess she must have been a year or two, maybe 2.5, with Lila, who is going to college in the fall. And I get the call from my manager, you got the part. And I pick her up and I just swing her around and around in a circle. I'm sure I made her nauseous, but it was just one of those moments. And so to flash forward through the random stuff I've gotten to do, which has all been fulfilling in its own ways, from a prison break to a wet hot American summer, to creating a show with my wife called 9JKL for CBS, to other things, movies, stuff. I auditioned for this show called Hotel Cocaine. It's actually called Untitled Miami Project at the time, for a showrunner named Chris Brancato, who,
Oh, sure.
because of his pedigree, he created Narcos and The Godfather of Harlem. And the script is fantastic about the drug trade in Miami in 1978 at this hotel called the Mutiny Club, which was real in Coconut Grove, where all the rock stars did their drugs and all the coke dealers, the Cuban immigrants who had just come from, who just escaped Castro's Cuba, and some of them, went the straight and narrow, and some of them became drug dealers. And I'm playing Burton Greenberg on this audition, the owner of the hotel, the owner of the Mutiny Club. And I've got my plate with my powdered sugar for cocaine that I'm snorting in the scene. And there's a moment in the scene where Hunter S. Thompson is a guest at my hotel. I think he's doing a puff piece, but it turns out he's doing an expose on my family, my rich Republican family, and I'm the Democratic, liberal, hippie, black sheep. And he says, do you know that your family exploits your workers? And I just convert or translate this English speech into Spanish, and I say, exploit. Do you know how many quinceañeras I've been to in the last 5 years? Toda la gente que trabajan aquí son mi familia. Whether you're a busboy or a manager, tú eres mi familia real. Anyway, I went for it on this audition, on this tape.
Yeah.
My representatives loved it. Anyway, we sent it in. I find out that people liked it. I get on a Zoom with Chris Brancato. He looks at me across the Zoom. In the beginning of the Zoom, no like, who's auditioning who, none of that. He just says, Mark, when I get self-tapes, we usually get 40 to 50. It usually comes down to 2 people, and you like one more than the other, and you vet it and you go through all the people. In this case, for this role, there was one person, and it's you.
Oh.
And I that's never happened to me, where they just, without any more hoops, just gave it up in the most menschy way. And I'll never forget that moment, because of course it was in the middle of the hills and valleys of this life and this career where you're desperately.
How good does that feel?
Felt so good.
So I have no recollection of Bonnie giving you a second chance on Royal Pains. The only thing I remember about the casting of it was that Paolo looked so much like you. We had to rewrite it to be brothers because otherwise it was weird.
Exactly right. And that, to me, that was an example of the magic of television, because a movie is a story that you're not going to be able to change, but a TV show is an organic beast that, when we tested together between our schnozzes and our Brillo pad hair heads, they said these guys are brothers.
Like brothers. Yeah, and they look like brothers.
And it changed the whole tenor of the show.
Right, instead of best friends. So that I remember very, very well. I don't ever remember a rejection. Cast Mark. No, I just remember.
Yeah, I mean.
But maybe because in my mind, I was like, oh, goody, I finally get to cast the guy who played the bike messenger in Once and Again. So to me, it was like a done deal. I
think we tend to want to put these moments in the background because we want the great story, and it's all joy from there, because what an experience.
Yeah.
But I honestly think it's just a tribute to Bonnie and you and the team, that it wasn't a no in the end. It was we care so much about this show. We view ourselves, even though we are only a fledgling cable network at this time. Monk has been a success. Burn Notice is a growing hit. 2 shows that people are watching, but it wasn't the network that cranked out 6 hits in a row, Suits and White Collar and then Mr. Robot and all of it. The belief in itself, the belief, Bonnie, you, Jeff Wachtel all had in your content that like you better bring your A game, and we're not sure we're handing this to anybody.
Yeah.
And I had to work for it. And
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I have the tenacity and I'm not proud. I don't stand on ceremony. Like, okay, give me another shot. I'll go in
Yeah.
and
Well,
try to win it.
that's who you are in every possible way. Is like your work ethic was insane. I mean, I don't know how many times I visited the set or saw you at, events outside of the set, but never out of energy, always leading like Pied Piper, like, let's go, let's go, let's go. And I was like, do you ever get tired? Do you ever, and even when you were here with on years ago on vacation with your kids, you're like in the pool, catching one off the water slide,
Yeah.
playing this game, going in the ocean, doing that, changing whatever. I don't know if there was
Oh my
diapers
God.
involved.
The
But
Grand Wailea, which is where we stayed,
yeah,
that was so fun and crazy. Yeah, that was like we were in the shit, in it with the kids,
yeah,
carrying one,
yes,
throwing one down the
yes,
slide
yes.
on the
This
beach.
one wants this one thing to drink. This one's going to get sunburned. This one, da, 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 and all different ages. And I'm like looking at you and I'm like, how in the universe do you have the energy for this? And you're like, I love it.
I
And you
I
brought the
do
same exuberance to parenthood that you did to your being the lead in a show.
thank you.
Incredible.
Thank you.
Incredible.
You
So
can
I
imagine
guess
how
it's all meditation, right?
yeah, that's it. It's just meditate. I can assure you I exhaust my wife and most people. I do love my life. I do love the time I have with my kids. I know it's starting, the clock is ticking on, one leaving the house and soon another and then it'll be the empty nest. But my grandmother always said, this day will never come again. This
Mm,
day,
mm,
this exact day made
mm,
up of these parts in this
mm,
moment of your life will never come again. And she lived that way. I mean, she did. And she raised 6 children on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And my father grew up in a bedroom with his 4 other brothers, 5 boys in one room, his sister Rena in another, and his parents in the other room above a shoe store in a tenement where my father was, as a baby, put in a milk crate on the fire escape. That was his nursing room. That was his baby room.
wow.
And he was never happier, playing punch ball in the schoolyard. And so that energy of the joy of life, not requiring anything fancy, just that we're alive, that we're together. I do carry that in me too, being inculcated in us, and he lives it every day. And I'm so blessed to have him still in my life. We just FaceTimed with
Is
my parents last night
is he
for
still
Mother's
wearing a bow
Day.
tie every day?
Every day. Jackie, what a
Really?
memory you have.
Of course.
He goes casual to like my nephew's basketball games and other
Uh-huh.
things.
Uh-huh.
But yes, he goes to that office every day. I can't say he wears a bow tie every day, but for 55, 60 years as a practicing attorney in Manhattan, bow tie, suspenders,
Yeah.
sock garters. There
Yeah.
was a moment I mentioned that my wife and I produced a show, 9JKL. It was
Yeah.
based on my family in
I
New
knew
York.
that. Yes.
The 2 apartments we have, my father bought the apartment. I grew up in 9K. He bought 9J, and that's where I crash when I go to New York. And we literally didn't change. Not that it's a great title. I mean, no one knew what the hell that meant. But anyway, 9JKL, those are the 3 apartments because there was another one at one point in time. And there was a moment because my father was played by Elliot Gould, who I love, who I talk to
Yeah.
once every few months. I love him so much. And he's dressed in his wardrobe, in his bow tie, in his suspenders. My father's on the set for the filming of the pilot in his bow tie, in his suspenders. And he goes right up to Elliot Gould. He goes, Elliot, you got to fold the corner down. That's how they know you tied it.
I love that he was giving him wardrobe notes on his own
I was
character.
like, Dad, please just back off. Just let the guy play.
No, that's so awesome.
Yeah, it is.
That's so
He's a one of a
awesome.
kind, my dad.
Let me ask you in our few remaining minutes, I just would love to know the exuberance and the work ethic clearly comes from multi generations of your family, starting with your grandmother, your father, all the things. the meditation came from whom? Who did you say was the one who inspired you initially?
Well, I mean, that was happenstance. I was
Okay.
doing a play at Lincoln Center, ran into Jerry Burns
Oh,
on that Barnes and Noble on the island at Broadway and 67th Street. He's been through the steps and all. He's a leader of that. He's a sponsor to so many who've been through the AA program. I'm sure he's fine with me revealing that. He's such a leader in that space. And he just said, "Get the Power of Now" by Eckhart Tolle.
oh, that was the
And,
beginning.
and look,
Yeah.
it's so LA. I'm not doing anything to buck the stereotype of the woo-woo LA actor, but it put me on a path. And I remember being with this woman in the Valley who taught out of a mini mall. We would go for free Fridays. It was a meditation. And I learned about, just practicing mindfulness. And my mother, who is 86 now and getting on, when we were talking to a geriatric psychologist about her well-being, they said, the best thing for her is mindfulness. And I was like, wow, when I was in my 20s to when you're in your 80s or 90s,
Yeah.
mindfulness is a key
Yeah.
because it's just like, here we are breathing and walking and living this life. And the question is, would you like to be present for that? Or would you like to just be constantly ripped away from it by your brain, which will do it without any effort? It will just go and
Right.
take you out of your moments. And
Yes.
we only have so many of them. So when I read those books, from John Kabat-Zinn to Thich Nhat Hanh
Yeah.
to Sharon Salzberg, Joseph Goldstein, I've been through all of them. I've been on yoga retreats and meditation retreats. I just found a home that is perfectly aligned with my Jewish values, because I also go to synagogue, a beautiful synagogue here in LA named Ikar with Sharon Brous as our rabbi. And when Addie, which you may or may not have planned to get to, but when Addie was sick, when she was 5 months old, she had a rare congenital heart defect. And Dr. Starnes at CHLA was performing heart surgery, open heart surgery on her. He did it twice. And during the second one, before which he said, it's 50-50 that we have to use an artificial pig valve to replace her mitral valve, which means she'll be on Coumadin for the rest of her life and have to have it replaced every 10 years. And it's 80-20 that she make it. I go outside, Sharon Brous shows up. I'm holding hands with my wife. We are both meditating and praying to that Jewish God that I, used to wish for making captain of the team or getting that A or, getting president of the class or getting into college. And now it's, God, please let my daughter live. Guide that doctor's scalpel perfectly across her heart. So and then I come upstairs and he gives me a thumbs up that she has almost a clean bill of health. She has lived, thrived. She's 14 and living a perfectly normal life. And so it's this combination of faith and presence that gets me through this crazy up and down life I'm living.
Love that. Love the merger of the two. That
Yeah.
because I always say that, because I'm such an advocate and proponent of meditation, and I always impart on people, meditation, it does not have to be religious. You do not have to be indoctrinated into any religion. You don't have to believe in God. You don't have to do it's just spirit and connection to yourself. That's it.
Yeah.
But you can also beautifully combine it with whatever religion you believe in. And so I love that you took something that was in your genetic makeup and your upbringing and your culture and blended it with something that is mindful and spiritual and not part of Judaism. Prayer is, but not meditation per se.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I mean, I would call myself a Jubu if that meant anything to anybody, but
so my girlfriend Leslie used to say, we're booish, which was,
I love that. That's the reverse.
yeah,
Booish. That's so
yeah.
cute. I love that.
Because we were both, kind of like Zen and spiritual but raised, in a certain way. So I love that. I love the combination of it. But what I was going to ask you is, do you have any other daily practices in your life that are sort of like your pillars or your tent poles, or that you do every day to keep your mind, body, or even just your professional practice current? And what I mean by that is, like, I have this model that I talk about in every episode practically, called home, which is hydration, observe your levels, meditate, exercise. And observe your levels just means, do I need to eat? Do I need to sleep? Like, being aware of what your body needs, checking in with your home
Mm-hmm.
so that you're not just like all over the place. Because we all know when we're dehydrated or hungry, or if we haven't exercised, or in my case, haven't meditated, usually we feel off. We feel scattered, we feel anxious, we feel depressed, whatever. So, do you have any sort of daily pillars that you do to keep yourself centered?
Sure, absolutely. I realized I haven't done yoga in a while, so I need to get back to that. I sometimes do it on Peloton with Kristen McGee, who I've
Yeah.
met and love.
She's been on
Uh,
my podcast.
oh, really?
Yes.
Oh my God.
She's
So
my
during the
favorite.
pandemic, I was obsessed with her class.
Yes.
And so thanks to social media, I just reached out and told her how fabulous. And before I know it, I'm in New York. I'm doing a private on the Upper West Side at her house. Turned out she would go to the Hamptons, where I would go for a month or two to be with my family. And I'm organizing whole groups of people to go live with her at somebody's house to do a yoga class. So I love her.
Amazing.
And Vinny Marino is another one here in LA who I love. But like Jackie, this morning I got up at 4. I mean, my sleep is erratic to say the least. And I'm a morning guy, as you could probably tell. I was up at 4:10, 4:20, and I'm just like, I know myself. I'm going to be up for an hour. And then if I have a chance at going back to sleep, it'll be 5:30. So let me get up. Let me go meditate now. And I sat in my chair and I read a little Thich Nhat Hanh about breathing in. I am aware I'm breathing in, breathing out. I'm aware I'm breathing out. And then I sat for, oh, actually, I did a guided meditation with Joseph Goldstein. And then I did another 15 minutes just in silence. But also, when I woke up, I had a dream, and I do some dream work with
Hmm.
a woman named Kim Gillingham in LA. And I wrote down this crazy dream I had, which was truly like sent for all my fears. It was Chris Brancato, the story I told you, telling
Yeah.
me, I don't know if we're going to keep the scene and we may have to cut your whole part from season 1. I'm like, ugh, like a dagger. And then he goes away, and I'm sitting there stressed out. And then he comes back and goes, we're going to keep it in. And I'm like, oh, thank God, thank you. But if you have to cut, and I say something in a very pleasery, but if you have to, I get it. I'm part of it. And it was just such a everything about me in a nutshell. So I wrote it
Yeah.
down and I
Yeah.
sent it to an acting coach I work with dreams sometimes. So we're going to have a session about that. Writing in my journal is from The
Yeah.
Artist's Way. It can be
Yeah.
really useful to just get
Yeah.
it all out on.
Yeah.
Even I have to do it on my computer because I can type faster than I can write. And then just walking my dogs in the morning. And sometimes I'll be lucky enough to go into my jacuzzi and read the New York Times on a Sunday afternoon, and reading a Mary Oliver poem, and taking a walk with my wife at 5 or 6 in that perfect twilight time of
Yeah.
day here in
Yeah.
LA. These are the moments where I'm in communion with something greater than myself. And when I remember to breathe and that I am on this earth and breathing, I am so grateful for that moment, because it is not as often as I would like. There are, I'm constantly flying by the seat of my pants. There's so much going on, 3 kids, a career as a writer and an actor.
But it sounds like you do practice mindfulness all day long, because you
I,
start your day with meditation, and sometimes you're doing yoga, or sometimes you're walking your dogs, or sometimes you're walking with your wife, and sometimes you're just appreciating the twilight of Los Angeles in the late afternoon, and that's mindfulness.
for sure. I'm not always present to it, but Sharon Salzberg, a great meditation teacher and mindfulness coach, has said, if you can just take this one breath, like that's it, just
Yeah.
focus on this one breath. You don't have to worry about the whole day or the year of meditating perfectly.
Yeah.
Just take one breath and be there for it. Like that's enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dayenu, as we say.
Yeah. 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 That is a great place to say thank you. This has just been an incredible conversation and reconnection. And I love, love, love this visit. I love this interview, and I loved hearing from you and seeing you, and just your exuberance for life and what you do is so contagious.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Jackie, you have such a special place in my heart. Not only did we make a great TV show together, but we have a connection that we've always had from when I told you about meditation at Sushi in 2009, which is so crazy. But I'm just so grateful for you. I knew this would be special. I knew we'd get to talk about all the special, ethereal, deep things that I appreciate about my life and that you bring to so many that you coach in your life. And it was everything and more.
Thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate just the time because, like I said, between the series and, like you said, 3 kids
Yeah.
and one
Right?
graduating high
Like this is
school.
how we have to connect sometimes is
I know.
through a Zoom scheduled for a podcast. Great. I'll take it. I love it.
Me too. Me too. But next time it's going to be in person for sure.
Yes. A meal when you come to LA for sure.
I would
Please.
love that. All right,
Okay.
Mark. Thank you so much.
A pleasure.
And I will talk to you soon.
Such a joy. Thank you, Jackie.